This month, Mind Games. How Olympic pressure can meddle with minds.
You rarely see people winning the games on day one, but you quite often see people losing the games on day one.
Sailing with siblings. How two Chilean families have formed two Olympic teams. Plus, from hotels to humble sailing clubs, they're everywhere. Andy Rice explains the appeal of the laser. But first, why 16,000 sailors flocked to one race and how one team smashed the record. It is a spectacle whichever way you look at it. With over 1,500 entries and 16,000 sailors, the horizon becomes a wall of sails. The annual race around the Isle of Wight is the UK's fourth biggest participation sporting event. Only the London Marathon and the Great North and South runs are bigger. For many, the 50-mile race will take the whole day. For others in faster boats, the trip will be complete before the local cafes have stopped serving breakfast. But for one team, this year's race would write a new entry in the record book. For the rest, be it royalty, Olympians or rock stars from other sporting worlds, this famous race is a must-do. Current monohull record holder Mike Slade has set a new course record 5 times since 1991.
We started with Ocean Leopard and that was 5 hours 20. And I think the latest one was 2 years ago, 3 hours 43. And that's the one we've got to try and beat.
At the other end of the scale, Neil Collings is typical of the thousands of amateur sailors who take part simply for fun.
It's just the atmosphere, it's just everything about it. You know, you just come to Cowes and all those boats, all those competitors, just the sight on the water is just the most amazing sight. And once we did it the first year, we can't stop doing it now.
There are those who come from abroad.
I think it's the numbers which are talking. I think we're talking about 1,500 boats in the entries. The biggest one we have in France is probably 500. So we are curious to see how it looks like on the starting line.
And then there are teams that are doing the race as part of a longer-term project.
We are an inner city school from North London. All of the boys on board this boat are from Tottenham. We are from a state school which is classified as a disadvantaged school. I think we're in the top 20 most disadvantaged schools in London. But rather than just kind of sort of moping around thinking we can't do things, they've decided to be proactive and get this project started. We have got a group of boys who started sailing 3 years ago, dinghy sailing initially. Then they raised funds to buy a racing yacht.
The reason why I do it is because it's like a new challenge. You're constantly learning new things.
What I like about it is the thrill. Like when you're out there sailing and when you're on high side and the boat is going really fast, that's when it's at its best.
As always, the race would be special for thousands of people, including the crews aboard 2 giant trimarans. From inshore sprints to transocean marathons, Lloyd Thornburg's Phaedo and Ned Collier Wakefield's Concise 10 have been going head-to-head for a year. Both boats are identical Mod 70 trimarans, and both teams share the same goal: to win. The Round the Island race was no different.
It will come down to one maneuver. Honestly, the boats are that close. Concise is sailing that well. Everybody's turning it up to 11, and pushing so hard.
We've had such a good match race with them all over the world. Every race we've done, it's like a bit of bungees between us, and whoever gets in front, then we pull them back in.
But this time, both were focused on an additional prize: the race record.
We did it last year in just over 3. We went around yesterday in 2:30. So I think beating Ben's record is certainly obtainable. The forecast isn't ideal, so it's going to be all to do with how many tacks we have to put in up to the needles.
As the second start of the day, Phaedo and Concise had a clear path. The race was on. And this was the record-breaking pace that they were chasing. In 2003, Ben Ainsley set a new record aboard Land Rover BAR's AC45. Approaching Hurst Narrows, both were keeping tacks to a minimum. By the first turn at the Needles, a boisterous sea state and a strong breeze piled on the pressure. Phaedo had pulled out a comfortable lead on Concise 10, but she was still behind the record pace. With their foot flat to the floor, Thornburg's team had made time as they smoked past the halfway stage, St Catherine's Point. 3/4 of the way around at BEMBRIDGE Ledge, Phaedo had taken 10 minutes off the record pace. As she entered the Solent, victory was in sight, as were some of the backmarkers that were still on the first leg of the course. The home stretch to the finish had seen the biggest gains. Thornburg's crew had smashed the record by 31 minutes and 8 seconds. A blistering pace and a spectacle all of its own. Kiwi Phil Robertson and his crew went home $1 million better off after winning the final of the World Match Racing Tour in Marstrand, Sweden. The event, which drew 40,000 spectators, provided plenty of drama with strong winds, high speeds and collisions. The racing went down to the wire with a win apiece in the best of 3 races between Team Robertson and their opponents, US 1, skippered by Taylor Canfield. Shortly before the Welsh football team became stars at Euro 2016, their capital city, Cardiff, provided the 3rd venue for this year's Extreme Sailing Series. Strong winds and big gusts saw boat speeds hit 30 knots at times in the opening 2 days. After 28 races, Morgan Larsson's Oman Air had built a sufficient points lead to take the overall victory, despite light winds and a last place in the final race. Records tumbled in the Volvo Round Ireland race. First came the blistering pace of the 3 Mod 70 trimarans that each broke the existing course record. They finished within 8 minutes of each other after 704 nautical miles. In the 3-way battle, Sydney Gavigner's Musandam Oman Sail took line honours. You have to be special to get to the Games. But outsailing and outsmarting the competition is simply not enough. Sealing victory means winning a mental battle too, with yourself. And for many, it's this battle that is the toughest. The Australian Olympic team know this well. For more than a decade, their secret weapon has been this man, Viktor Kovalenko, the medal maker. His tally so far, 9 Olympic medals won by those he's coached. But strangely, when success breeds success, the coaching task gets harder.
It's not very easy to work with 6 times world champions and Olympic champions and world sailors of the year. My job to build personalities, to make them stronger and stronger. Every day I have to prove them that I'm also top class. Not once a week, every day.
Kovalenko knows that the real issue lies with the sailors themselves and how they approach the Games.
For some of them, just to be at the Games is fantastic. They will remember this all of their lives. For some of them, they're coming to the Games with a dream of the medal. Some of them, they're coming to the Games with hope of the medal. And some of them, they're coming to the Games just grab their medals. And that's making a huge, big difference.
And then there's the pressure of expectation. The Games are different.
You have your uniform with your country on the back, and you have a lot of journalists around with $1 million on the table. If you see the crowd around, if you see the money on the table, you will never play well. But if you see your cards, and if you see your opponent's eyes, you will play very well. You have to build your character, because to deal with pressure, it's not very easy.
Stephen Park is the Royal Yachting Association's Olympic team manager. Rio will be his 5th Games. He's seen plenty of success.
Of course, with that comes the fear of failure and how you're then, if you like, going to face your nation if you don't actually deliver your best performance. That pressure is something that some sailors revel in and really rise to. And equally, on the other side, it's ones where you see multiple world champions crumble when they get there to that final final hurdle, and that's why the Olympics are so special.
And the pressure can do strange things to some sailors.
They're trying to do something special on that day, and they just don't quite get it right. And you rarely see people winning the games on day one, but you quite often see people losing the games on day one.
For 2 weeks in August, there will be those that rise to the challenge and those that collapse.
Pressure of the games is huge, big in all sports. That's why at the games we can see miracles when the champions are down and new people are coming.
So while Kovalenko may be the medal maker, the pressure of the games could produce a miracle maker too. From old hands to a family affair, in part 2 we meet 2 sibling teams on their way to Rio. But first, capsizing in the extreme sailing series is an occupational hazard, but sometimes things can get even worse. Stay with us to find out what happened next. On day 2 at the Extreme Sailing Series in Qingdao, conditions had been tricky, with a steady 15 knots of wind, but with much bigger gusts. As the crew of the Wave Muscat came out of a jibe, a gust hit and the bows buried at speed. A pitch pole capsize was inevitable. Hitting and breaking the mast on their way down caused an even bigger problem. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and the team were out racing the next day. In the heat of competition, there is no time to talk. Anticipation rather than communication is the key. From a small heading change to a subtle shift in the balance of the boat, knowing how your teammate thinks and moves speaks louder than words. Many helm and crew combinations have spent so much time together that they claim they know each other better than their partners ashore. But some go back even further. Some have known each other from birth. Sailing with a sibling might not seem like the perfect answer to some, but for others, it's a crucial link. Beg and Ara Gumucio are sisters and sail the 49er FX. Brothers Ben and Chris Grez sail a 49er. Both grew up in Santiago, Chile, and both are heading to Rio.
Sailing with my sister for me is like I only see me sailing with her. In Chile we have a few sailors. I choose her and I can't imagine sailing with another person. We complement so good that for me it's so easy sailing with her.
Being with your sister is like having a piece of your family together, so it makes it easier, and we don't have much fights as maybe other teams do have. We solve all of our problems in the water, and then when we get ashore we are friends again.
I think the advantage to sail with the family it's like everything goes easier. You know what your brother is thinking. Sometimes it's hard because it's too much time with family, but at the end I think it's better.
We live together, so we learn how to take an advantage of it, because at the same time it could be a disadvantage, like being 365 days with my brother. But like if you can learn how to transform it in a good way, it's a really, really good thing.
My sister doesn't have big bad habits. Maybe sometimes she stopped talking when we are sailing, and I always tell her, please, I need more information, talk. But this is a communication thing.
Her bad habit, maybe it's a bit bossy, but she's been bossing since I'm so little that for me it's natural.
The Gumucio sisters and Grez brothers all learned to sail together at Club de Yates in Algarrobo. And when it came to achieving their Olympic dream to represent Chile, they mirrored each other's success. At the Sailing World Cup Miami in early 2016, both teams qualified their country and themselves for Rio.
So the Chilean 49er boys that qualified for us, we're so happy.
They used to sail opti with us, and they are the same age than us, so a long life together. We used to share accommodation with them, so we spend a lot of time with them.
we are always usually a really small team, and having someone close from your country that speaks your language, it makes it fun and easy.
We learned pretty much to sail together, and yeah, like my whole career have been close to them, so it will be really cool to be in the Olympics with them as well.
Benjamin Grez has been to the Olympics before. In London 2012, he represented Chile in the men's 470, and at age 19 was one of the youngest members of his country's team. But for his brother and the Gumucio sisters, their Olympic debut is on their doorstep.
Well, Rio is a really special place. It's also a city in South America. It will be really cool to feel a little bit more in home.
Brazil is quite different from Chile, but we can understand Portuguese, we can speak a little bit Portuñol, so it's easy for us. It makes us feel good there.
Qualifying for the Olympics is the first step of a big dream. We always dream in being in one Olympic Games. It's a great opportunity for us, but also for the country.
For me, being at the Olympics means a lot. We did a really hard work for that. We started sailing in this class around 3 years ago. A nice prize for all that work we did.
But it's not just the sailors that are close and focused on the Games. Both families know each other well and will be travelling to the Games to watch and support. For teams Gumucio and Grez, the Rio Olympics will be a family affair. A demanding new course has been announced for the next Volvo Ocean Race. At 45,000 miles, the race is longer than any previous edition and has 3 times the amount of Southern Ocean sailing. 7 teams are expected to compete in the 10-leg tour, which takes the fleet to 11 major cities on 5 continents. The race starts in Alicante in late 2017 and finishes in The Hague, Holland, in the summer of 2018. First, he won the Transat Bakerley across the Atlantic. Then, on his way back to France, François Gabard set a new 24-hour solo speed record, sailing his 100-foot trimaran, Massif. The new 24-hour distance record now stands at 785 nautical miles. Luxury yacht builders Nautor Swan celebrated their 50th anniversary with the launch of one of their most innovative and ambitious models, the One Design Club Swan 50. The unveiling took place at their base in Jakobstad, Finland, alongside the first boat that the company built, the Swan 36 Tarantella. Since then, the company has produced over 2,000 yachts. From sailing clubs to beach hotels around the world, the chances are that you will find a laser somewhere in the grounds, something no other Olympic class can boast. With more than 200,000 built, the laser is one of the world's most popular single-handed dinghies. First launched in 1971, the strict rules that ensure that all boats are the same, along with the boat's simplicity, are 2 of the cornerstones of the class.
One of the problems that sailing has is that people can't always relate to what they're watching when they're watching Olympic sailing. You watch the cycling, we've all ridden a bike, you watch the swimming. The laser is really ubiquitous.
Olympic sailing expert and former 49er sailor Andy Rice explains.
There's absolutely no difference between the lasers that are supplied for the Olympic Games and what you would buy if you were going to buy one off the shelf. That's the beauty of the laser. They're all supplied to the sailors and you get what you're given. There's no arms race here. There's no point in developing your own laser that you bring to the Games because, well, you can't use it.
While the laser is an easy boat to handle, it's a difficult boat to sail well. Some have spent decades perfecting the technique.
The laser's been an Olympic class now for 20 years. The first time was Atlanta 1996, and it was a certain Brazilian, Robert Scheidt, that won the gold medal in 1996. And he would go on to dominate the class for the next decade after that.
But despite going on to win 9 world championships, there was one sailor that got in his way from the start, Ben Ainslie. Scheidt had forced the young British sailor into silver at the Atlanta Games after a brutal and famous match race. At the next Games in Sydney, Ainslie returned the gesture and took gold. Scheidt was gutted.
He wasn't happy with silver, refused to talk to Ben Ainsley for some years afterwards, as he told me even just 2 or 3 years ago. It took him a long time to get over that. But he did come back. He won the gold medal in Athens 2004. 20 years after winning that gold medal, he potentially is one of the gold medal contenders on home waters in Rio. And that's really what's got him back into the boat over the age of 40.
The fleet has often seen dominant performances. After Scheid came Australian Tom Slingsby, who won gold in Weymouth easily. But Rio looks different.
This time round, we haven't really got a clear favourite. There's just a bunch of really good sailors, any one of whom, given their week, could win the gold.
Be it British sailor and current and double world champion Nick Thompson, Australia's Tom Burton, Germany's Philip Boul, France's Jean-Baptiste Bernaz, or Holland's Rutger van Schaardenberg, there is plenty of hot competition for Rio. But only one will be feeling the extra pressure of a home games.
No one is going to have more motivation than Robert Scheid. No one has been more successful in the laser than Robert Scheid. And if he were to win another medal at these games, gold, silver or bronze, I believe that he might have become the first Olympic sailor ever to have won 6 medals at an Olympic Games.
The women's fleet in the laser radial class is a similar story. There is no clear favourite.
4 years ago, it was China, Lily Zhu, who won the gold medal for China. She stepped out for a couple of years, said she wasn't coming back, but recently has changed her mind, has got back in. The silver medalist, Marit Bouwmeester from the Netherlands, she's been one of the very clear contenders over the last 4 years. Belgium's Evie van Acker, the bronze medalist, still extremely good.
Add to this Ireland's Annalise Murphy, Britain's Alison Young, and America's Paige Rayleigh, and the scramble for the podium could be intense. But there is one key factor that is common to all.
The laser is totally unadaptable. You've got to work with what you're given. You have to adapt yourself and your sailing style to the boat. It is a brutally hard boat to sail well because it wants to be sailed flat, but to sail it flat, you've got to have a really strong core and you've got to be able to straight leg hike all the way around the course. There's no room to hide in the laser. It's only you that makes the difference.
Next month, the America's Cup returns to its roots as the World Series comes to Portsmouth. Plus, preparing for the Paralympics.